Brooke Williamson, Nat Turner. Hello, everybody. My name is Brooke Williamson, and today I will be talking to you about the historical person that I researched, Nat Turner. As some of you may already know, he was an African American preacher that led a very significant rebellion, the Southampton County Rebellion. But there is so much more to know. Nat Turner was born on October 2nd, 1800 in Southampton, Virginia, where he would later grow up to lead, like I said, the most significant rebellion. Turner was born on a plantation and raised up as an enslaved African American his entire life. Turner worked on various different plantations until he ran away from Samuel Turner's plantation in 1821. However, after about 30 days of hiding, Nat Turner actually returned to the plantation willingly after receiving what he said was a sign from God. In my research, I found an online archive of historical documents, letters, maps, and many other accounts of the past that gives a detailed look into the life of Nat Turner and the significance of the Southampton County Rebellion. According to this resource by Sarah N. Roth of Meredith College, Turner was a strong, yet enslaved African American preacher, leader, and activist for his entire life through 1831. The Southampton Revolt was led by Turner, and it was one of the most significant rebellions for African Americans and probably the most significant thing that Turner ever participated in his entire life. It certainly was what he was most remembered by. In August of 1831, Nat Turner, along with other African Americans, about 75 were believed to have joined him, set out on a journey to fight for their freedom. Turner believed that he was being told by God to battle the serpent, as he famously said, which was in reference to the battle of racism, slavery, and discrimination in America. This rebellion ultimately ended up killing approximately 60 white men, women, and children along the way. Throughout the next several months to come, whites were very angry with this and even sought vengeance on Turner and African Americans in general. During this time, slaves were put on trial and executed, including Turner, who was snuffed out by militia after he had been in hiding once again. He then was lynched along with many other African Americans who may not have even been affiliated with this rebellion, but solely for the fact that they were African Americans. Also, according to History.com, and I quote, afterwards, Turner hid nearby successfully for 6 weeks until his discovery, conviction, and hanging at Jerusalem, Virginia, along with 16 of his followers. The indicted put fear in the heart of Southerners, ended the organized emancipation movement in that region, and deepened the schism between slaveholders and free soilers, which was an anti-slavery political party whose slogan was free soil, free speech, free labor, and free men. That would culminate in the Civil War. So that just gives a little bit more detail about what was going on and how he was snuffed out by militia after he had been in hiding. Backtracking a little bit to before the death of Nat Turner, we can find some interesting information in the book The Confessions of Nat Turner, the leader of the late insurrection in Southampton, Virginia, documented by Thomas R. Gray about Turner's last thoughts. In this book, it goes into great detail about Nat Turner's thoughts and emotions while he was held in the Southampton County Jail for a few days after coming clean about the killings during the rebellion. And this was just before he was also lynched. Thomas R. Gray was a lawyer who interviewed Turner in the Southampton County Jail over the course of 3 days, November 1st through the 3rd, in 1831. During these interviews, Thomas R. Gray got a lot of information about Turner in the sense of his reasons for starting the rebellion and how he felt about it during and after. Like mentioned before, Turner was an educated preacher, and in these confessions he shares the idea of Turner being told by God to lead slaves to freedom, and the introduction of the idea to him being a prophet, so to speak, leaving a very strong message to African Americans and whites alike for his reasons of doing this. So, in a mini recap lightning round, because I know that was a lot of information, here we go. Here we have learned that an African American preacher named Nat Turner, who was a slave, had a feeling he was being told by God to lead his people to freedom. So, how did he go about it? Nat Turner actually started out by killing his owners at the time, which was the Travis family, the Travises, on August 21st, 1831. This was the start of the rebellion. Next, he gathered others. Of course, we don't know what types of conversations they were having, but Nat Turner got about 75 other African Americans to join him in his journey to freedom. So they thought. Throughout this 2-day long journey, Turner and his group killed about 60 white men, women, and children. They did so to set people free and to find freedom, not out of straight violence. However, that ultimately ended up with many African Americans being lynched or beaten by white mobs, whether they were involved or not. And this ended up resulting in harsher laws against slaves. But it did send a message to whites, especially slave owners at the time, and was a huge step towards freedom for African Americans. So, now we have discussed basically the who, what, when, where, and why. Now let's take a step back and see what events have come from this, and why it is so significant. Elizabeth Beaulieu shares her thoughts and research of the multiple ways Nat Turner is recorded in history in a journal. These thoughts that she had explained the comparison of multiple writers' depiction of Nat Turner in several different ways. It goes as far as to even say that Nat Turner is a literary figure and a historical enigma, which I would say is very true. Nat Turner's life and leadership in the rebellion and the freeing of the enslaved was a shockwave into the idea of freedom in general. It showed whites that African Americans were willing to fight for themselves and for their freedom. In the 2-day Southampton Rebellion, the widespread panic that ensued revealed the struggle with morality of slavery to people and Nat alike. And I'm sure it showed us, it's like how we think of slavery today. We have such a struggle with the morality of it. It's not morally right, just like Turner thought. It's wrong and dehumanizing, and to say the least. He saw the injustice, and he examined the morals, discrimination, and hurt of his people. And in the end, Turner knew he would lead African Americans into freedom one way or another and leave a lasting mark on the United States and the issue of slavery for years to come, making it so significant. Not only did Nat Turner's 1831 rebellion in Southampton, Virginia affect people then, it forced people to ask the question, is slavery necessary? Is it morally okay? Why are we doing it? And all of these questions, and frankly, the answer is no, it has never been okay, and it never will be. Unfortunately, it has taken the United States far too long to figure that out. Turner's strength and leadership continues the conversation even up until today. Now, of course, with COVID-19 and everything going on right now, we cannot be together, but Nat Turner finds his way into my life here in 2020. I'm a dance major, and it's really fun, But I also enjoy theater, and I am in a traveling readers theater show called The Millie Project. This show is a show about an enslaved African American woman winning her freedom in court even before Dred Scott. It is a true story about Millie Sawyer's Springfield, Missouri, the town's founders, race, and so much more. In the script, we include many other historical figures such as Fannie Lou Hamer, whom we have learned and read about, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Nat Turner, just to name a few. The story of Nat Turner and his rebellion that happened so many years ago was so significant, and I would suggest essential to how we live our lives today, and why it is so important that we continue to share and learn about him. In our show, there is a song that I think speaks to what Nat Turner was feeling. It is traditionally a song that African Americans would sing during the Civil Rights Movement. The lyrics go, and I'm not the best singer, but I'll sing it for you. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on and talking, marching to the freedom land. And those lyrics in this song are part of our show in a reference to the civil rights movement, but like in general, but also it stands with all of the people that to say that we will continue marching and striving for justice, equality, equity, and to have representation for all people, especially African Americans. So I would just like to say thank you so much for listening to my research about Nat Turner. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will do your own research about Nat Turner and that you will use his significant rebellion to educate yourself and to educate your community and our society, to show that African Americans have really had to fight this battle, and they shouldn't have to. So I think it is imperative that we learn about these things to accept our past and progress forward. And so I just thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.